Welcome back. Episode 13 of your favorite podcast on the planet, Realty Talks podcast. Suzanne Cini, the broker owner of Innovate Realty. A lot of really interesting stuff to talk about in the broker world today.
Yeah.
And I am Paul Hansen. I run Buy Buy House. If you have not listened to previous episodes, we are partners. In both businesses. We run a pretty decent-sized boutique brokerage in Southern California. So we represent sellers and buyers, and we buy, fix, hold, and buy, fix, and sell single-family, some light multifamily, all over Southern California Buy Buy House. So we are very in tune with local markets and the Southern California market as a whole. With just live time information.
Yeah.
So that is the intention of our podcast. We love to talk about those things. We have some really cool guests on. So if you haven't listened, this is your first time, stay tuned.
You're missing out.
Yes, you're definitely missing out, but stay
Yeah.
tuned for, we think really good information that should help position you properly. So
Yeah.
So what's new?
So this week we have some big, changes in the real estate world with real estate agents and what that process looks like moving forward, changing a little bit. We've talked about it before for buyers in the industry and, also kind of just paperwork changes for agents. But yeah, as a whole, I think we talked about this. We briefly touched on it, but I think it's important for the average consumer that is maybe looking to buy a home to talk about affordability just for a second, because, the big question is if, buyers are now going to be responsible for commissions to pay for their agents' commissions. Does that affect affordability? Will they, will they potentially qualify for less? And I think we uncovered some interesting information a couple episodes ago, but I think it's important because now that we're, coming into practice with this, I think you had a great observation regarding loan limits and how that really, did it really affect or will it really affect buyer affordability? So.
Yeah, the history with conforming loan limits, and I guess we should probably unravel what all that means.
Yeah.
But when a average American consumer goes out and purchases a single family house, conforming loan limit basically means that whoever the lender is that originates that loan is going to be able to immediately sell it to Fannie or Freddie, which basically the government is saying we're going to backstop and ensure that this loan gets purchased. They guarantee that the loan is going to get purchased. And I think this was instituted, I think it was in the 70s or 80s, to increase homeownership, the American dream, right?
Yeah.
I'd have to go back and double check. Don't quote me, but I think it was Reagan.
Okay.
And I believe at the time, Fannie Mae, their mission statement was to create affordable homeownership. And so by backstopping and creating what they call conforming loan limits, they are saying, hey, we'll sign up and buy this mortgage regardless of where it's coming from. And then that drastically takes the risk away for the lender,
right,
or the broker that's originating that loan, therefore encouraging, purchase, right?
Yeah.
So I'll fast forward, before COVID in Orange County, LA County, Southern California, we had one of the largest conforming loan limits in the high sevens. It was 778, I think, in 2018 or 2019.
Okay.
So you could go and buy a single family house and your total loan could be $778,000, which meant, you could put 3.5% down. So you bring like $20,000 down and buy a $800,000 house.
Yeah, crazy.
Which seems crazy.
Yeah.
Right? But a lot has changed.
Yeah.
So last year, fast forward to 23, conforming loan limits in August, September, I think, were $1,059,000. So you could buy $1 million house in Southern California with 3.5% down, $35,000, as long as your finished mortgage after your down payment was no more than $1,059,000, which is crazy.
Yeah.
To think about.
Yeah.
So 30% increase over the course of 5 years.
Yeah.
And then where we're at today, conforming loan limits in our markets in Southern California are 1.15 million.
Yeah.
So they have increased almost 8.5% or 9%
Yeah.
of what they're willing to backstop.
Yeah.
So essentially, if somebody comes down with, $50,000-$60,000, they can buy a $1.15 million house.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Which is wild.
Yeah.
With interest rates where they are, that mortgage payment's really high.
Right.
So DTI or debt to income, starts to become an issue. But I don't know if I'm right, but I think that increase that is so rapid, because we generally, that happens when, affordability is becoming a challenge.
Right.
Or the market's just doing really, really well. I think that big of a step is a response from HUD in relation to all of these NAR changes.
Yeah.
Because they're saying, okay, you now have to, as a buyer, sign on the dotted line and pay, or commit to pay your agent before you actually purchase.
Right.
There's no guarantee that the listing side of the transaction is going to cover that.
Right.
And so to help with affordability, we're going to allow you to put less down and buy a bigger house.
Exactly. I mean, I think
I don't know if it's right. But.
I think you're right. That's why I want to share it with the audience, because I think that makes a lot of sense. And we saw that change shortly after all of the NAR information started popping out. So I think it's pretty interesting. And I think at least, what that means for a buyer is not a whole lot will change for your out-of-pocket affordability, right? Like,
right.
I mean, that's the benefit there. So.
Well, I guess as long as you hire a good buyer's agent and a good lender.
Right.
Because if you're already at your max, and you're shopping at your max, and then that listing side isn't going to contribute, it is possible with these changes that you will no longer qualify for that mortgage, because even a 1 or 2% swing
makes a big difference.
Yeah, we're talking, $20,000-$30,000. We've seen a ton of transactions in the last 6 months where an extra $20,000 down is just not possible.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen people pulling together gift letters from family members and,
Yeah.
all sorts of other things to make things happen. But, I mean, it could be pretty material.
Yeah, it could. And I think that's to your point of working with a good agent, a good lender. I think, number one, a good agent is going to make sure that commission is negotiated on the other side.
Yep.
So that way the buyer's not having to deal with that. The lender piece, there are some interesting programs that are just being released also around this issue that we'll probably have to talk about on another episode, but where actually the lender is able to pay for some of that by maybe taking a higher interest rate. And so that's pretty interesting. And so, I think, again, working with the experts that do this every single day, those are the people that you want to be talking to.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone is going to let a deal go if, for 20K or for 10, like, it's just, no, we're like, you're going to work with people that are going to make that happen, if you're working with the right person. So.
I guess that's the major caveat.
Yeah.
If you're working with a good team, they won't let that occur.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But if you're working with agents that have never done this before, or agents that are not great, or agents with massive egos, maybe that doesn't get done.
Yeah, exactly.
So we got right into it, right into the meat and potatoes. I think we should just continue.
Yeah.
We want to talk today about what you can do as a seller in a unique market.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I probably should have pulled the data points a little better before we discuss this, but so don't quote me if I'm wrong on this, but I think baby boomers own more single-family real estate than any other age demographic in the United States. They also have the smallest amount of debt per capita in the United States. So, I think something like 40% of baby boomers don't have a mortgage anymore. And so that's a really interesting data point.
Right.
To me, what that indicates is that you've got a massive population set that is not interested in selling. I mean, they're not going to sell unless they have to.
Right.
I hate to get morbid, but it's like they're either going to die or sell because they move into a rest
Yeah.
home, right?
Yeah.
And so that's going to kind of keep inventory tight. You've got this other subset. I have a lot of friends, and we talk about it all the time. They're like, I'm at a 2.67%. It's like their badge of honor that their interest rate is so damn low.
Yeah.
They're never going to sell.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a friend that just had another child and was like, look, we don't have the space, but I'm not selling. Like, I'll put him in a shed.
Not losing this interest rate. Yeah.
I'll put him in a shed outside with a crib. Like, we're not selling because we are not losing this interest rate. We can't afford to get to a 6% interest rate.
Yeah.
So that is another subsector of, demand. But probably somewhat of an unpopular opinion, I still don't think it's the easiest time to sell.
Yeah.
Even though inventory is really low, I think it's sometimes very difficult. We're a seller.
Yeah.
At any point in time today, we have 8 or 9 properties that we're
Right.
on market to sell.
Yeah.
Some are moving very quickly. Certain pockets or micro markets are really painful.
Yeah.
So I guess my question is, what do you do as a seller to ensure that you're going to be successful when you go to market?
It comes down to, there are always going to be things about a house that you can't control. But there are a lot of things that you can control about your property. And the home's got to look good. I think at the end of the day, the average consumer right now that is out in the market looking to buy, they want something turnkey,
Yeah.
So they really, when they're looking at homes, everyone loves in theory to do the work and, get a deal and then remodel the house after. But I mean, I'm sure you know how that is. I know how it is living through a remodel. It is a nightmare, it's painful. So really, I mean, I think most consumers, when they walk into a home, they want that warm, fuzzy feeling of like, this is it, this is the one. We have those conversations with people all the time. And, you're not walking into an old dated house saying, this is the one, you don't necessarily give off those vibes. So you kind of got to do some work there to make sure that your house stands out amongst the competition.
Yeah. So a couple of points I think we should unravel there. As you know, I'm a big data person. I love to read and understand this stuff. So I think it was like 4 or 5 years ago, I met this author. He wrote a book. I think it's called The Unintentional Superpower. He's a global economist. And essentially what the book is about is, these demographics, these age gaps of people and their purchasing power, their purchasing characteristics. What he outlined in that book, which I thought was really interesting, is that millennials actually they consume more than any population on the planet. His perspective was kind of unique. He thinks that America is going to be the best it's ever been because generally consumption controls the market.
Right.
And we consume, not we, but our demographic to a certain degree, we consume more per capita than any population on the planet.
Wow.
And so a healthy population in a country would be kind of a pyramid, where older people are dying and then there's more younger people. There are countries out there that have the opposite, like China is kind of like an upside down triangle. There's a very small number of young people and a lot of old people that are aging out of the workforce. But I guess I bring that up because I don't even know if it's just that I don't even think they will buy an old house.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that that they just don't want to.
Yeah.
It's they're too lazy
Yeah.
to buy a poopy house in a great neighborhood and then go through the work. They just won't do it.
Yeah,
They'd
it's
rather
a
just
lot of
not buy.
work. It is a lot of work.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
I guess there's a couple of other things to unravel there. So it's they don't want to do it. I also kind of have the perspective that maybe they can't afford to do it. So if affordability is getting, impacted because rates are high, values are pretty flat, if not going up. So affordability gap is getting broader. Then buying an old house and fixing it up is really complicated because where do you come up with all that extra cash? You can't wrap that into your into your loan.
Right.
Right. You've got to go and close and then put that out of your pocket.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, how do you actually do that?
Yeah. It's tough. You can't. You're already giving all of your cash for your down payment, and who knows now, agent commissions too. But
yes.
No, unless you're working with a skilled negotiator, like. But no,
yes.
No, it's a concern. It's a thing. So, so as a seller, if you're looking to move your house quickly and you want to have that premium product, and you want to get the best possible offers out there,
yep.
It's a natural progression for you to then take on that work and get that done, so that way you can move your home at max price.
So what does that mean? Like, is that paint the house? Is that, this is a loaded question. Is that
I'm ready.
Move walls? Is that what does that mean? Like.
Yeah.
For the average seller?
Yeah, I think, look, it's each house is very different. So I think number one, we say it all the time, but you have to be working with a real estate agent that knows how to move your property. Because while we are not, interior designers,
yeah.
we do see a lot of homes. And we understand why they moved quickly, why they didn't move quickly, why they, what those nuances are. So sometimes it is a coat of paint, sometimes it is a, whole new bathroom, kitchen,
yeah.
floors. I mean, it really depends on what that consumer demand looks like. So, one thing that we've incorporated into our business is working with companies like Menden Markets, where we will actually link up the seller with a team that is going to come in and help with these recommendations, get the property move-in ready for the new buyers, and not have to pay for that money out of pocket. Because I think that is the other piece of it too. As you mentioned, a lot of people, they don't have a lot of debt. A lot of the mortgages are free and clear
yep.
On these older dated properties. But that doesn't necessarily mean that a seller wants to come out of pocket, 30, 40 grand
yeah.
To make these changes, even though, yes, their home will sell for more because of it, or sell, faster, whatever
yeah.
that motivation is. That's still not the easiest thing to do. So, working with these other options, the seller doesn't have to pay for that until they actually close on their property, because then it's paid out of their equity. So
yeah, and I think it's in today's market where we sit, I think it's even more complicated because and we'll just dive into Menden Market and what that means, but and the product and the offering. But I think some of those boomers that have a ton of equity, they're house rich, cash poor,
right,
and accessing home equity with what's happened in the regional banks over the last couple of years is actually really complicated.
Yeah.
So could they afford to go and spend 50 grand to upgrade their kitchens and bath? And answer yes, they have the equity to do it.
Yeah.
But what does that cost? And is it even is it even an option
right.
in their specific market?
Right.
But there are a lot of other issues, which is, if they do have the cash to go and do that, what are they going to be paying a contractor, a retail contractor, to execute?
Yeah.
And then I think the most important part, which you just brought up, is that the local agent or whoever it is that they're working with has got to put the dollars to work in a way where they know who is going to buy that house.
Right.
Right. So, putting a new kitchen in doesn't mean that, just spending 50 grand on a kitchen doesn't mean that you're going to get that 50 grand out.
Yeah.
In some markets, it means it's, $150,000 of value.
Right.
But in certain markets, it might mean zero.
Yeah.
Like, it might not even help.
Yeah.
And so, let's dive into what that means.
Well,
so Menden Market and what that product offering is.
Yeah, and I think you have a good point there too. I think, when I remodel a property for myself that I'm living in, I'm going to create that picture for my taste too.
Right.
And I think, you as a seller, you might think the same exact thing. You might have a personal preference. But again, I think it's important to work with the people that know what's going to move the property. You might love a gold countertop in your property. I might tell you that's a bad idea, So things like that where it's just a different lens that you're looking through. So it's really important to have kind of an expert working with you side by side on that.
Yeah. You don't like 6-foot gargoyles on your roof? You don't think that will help sell a property?
I think that one is going to be in the deterrent category.
Yeah. Check back on previous episodes. We purchased a house that a neighbor had 6-foot gargoyles, which
still has, not had.
They weren't there.
Yeah, they weren't there at the time, but they're still there now.
They're now, and they remain to be there. So that's great. The broader conversation is when we set out to build our single-family real estate platform. I think that's really the way that I want to address what it is that we're doing. We've had some incoming questions from people like, okay, you guys have a brokerage, you have this investment arm, you have this lending arm, you have all these things, and so what is it that you're great at? And the approach is really that we want to be great at single-family transactions.
Yeah, we want to have a solution for everything, right?
Yeah, and so as we were brainstorming early on, to me, when I look at single-family transactions, the bottom 20% of houses are heavily distressed. We call them the 4Ds: death, divorce, downsizing, or debt. One of those reasons, or one of those things or events, is going to encourage someone to go and sell to an investor. A lot of times those houses aren't even lendable.
Right.
So meaning that a buyer can't just step in and get their mortgage from Wells Fargo and just go and close.
Yeah, Wells Fargo isn't going to give a loan on that.
Yeah, and so we think that 20 to 30% of the market is that. We think that 20 to 30% of the market is ready to list.
Yeah.
Great house, great finishes. There's going to be a buyer.
Yeah.
Again, not every person loves all of the finishes, but there's going to be somebody that likes that, and it's going to get pretty close to top dollar and trade. So the middle 60%, which is the vast majority of houses, could use something to enhance the marketability.
Right.
And when I say marketability, I guess there's a few critical components. There's speed to sell.
Yeah.
I mean, you could sit on market for a long time, which is painful.
Yeah.
I just spoke with some people last weekend that listed their house. They have little ones. And they're like, oh my God, this is so terrible. We're staying in a hotel for 3 days for the open houses.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, get ready.
Yeah.
It might be 60 days of that, right? If you don't price right. I don't know. I didn't look at their specific situation. But so it's marketability is speed. It's the price that you're going to fetch. It's the terms, in terms of like how quickly is that person going to close once an offer does come in.
Right.
So marketability really means a lot of different things. So our approach to that was, we obviously can buy it and renovate it and sell it. We can obviously go and list it. Menden Market, our product that we're developing, is a solution for that vast majority. And the way that it functions is, I guess we should go backwards. Somebody wants to sell, they meet one of our agents or another agent. They say, hey, you've got this galley kitchen. This is not a load-bearing wall. If you opened this up, this would fetch $100,000 more, and that renovation would cost $50,000. Do you want to go and do that work? Most sellers are saying no. Yeah. We don't want to do it.
Right.
So what our team has the capacity to do is step in, put up the capital, perform the renovation,
right,
and then sell the property, with maximum marketability.
Yeah.
Break down what all that means. Top line statistics, we've been doing this for a little over a year now. Our average turn time, so from the day that somebody calls us to the day their house sells, is about 80 days. That includes the renovation. Our average renovation is about $35,000. And we think that on average, those sellers are getting about $140,000, $150,000 more than they would have gotten on market.
Right.
I think the critical steps of all that are again, identifying what it is with that specific house that's going to make it sell for more.
Yeah.
Being really disciplined just to do those things, not the other things.
Yeah.
Our business, as we have scaled, we have purchasing power for material. Yeah. We have internal construction teams and a vast network of contractors. And so we are paying wholesale pricing,
Right.
which we pass along to that consumer,
Yeah.
for the opportunity. Obviously, we're transparent. We do well because we get the listing.
Yeah.
And then we charge a simple service fee, that's essentially 10 to 15% of the total project, right?
Yeah.
So if you put a $50,000 kitchen in, you sell your house for $150,000 more in that Menden Market program. You put $0 out of your pocket. You don't have to oversee the construction. House sells. The
Yeah.
money gets paid back through escrow.
Yeah.
Plus $6,000, $7,000, $8,000.
Right.
Why wouldn't we do that?
Yeah, why wouldn't you do it? And I think, look, there are some companies out there that do something similar, right? And we've, dabbled with that in the past. I would say the biggest difference to highlight is that we are all aligned on the outcome. I think, some of these other companies out there, they're really focused on, all they do is this, right? All they do is the construction. And so they're charging a lot for it. Like that is where they make their money. Whereas for us, we just have the consumer in mind, and we know that all of our incentives are aligned. The consumer's going to make more money. We're going to list and sell their property for more money,
Quickly.
And quickly. And I think that's the big thing is even the work. We know the work's going to get done quickly because, you're not collecting extra interest or, and so.
No interest rate.
Yeah, it's really at the end of the day, I think that's what makes this stand out a little more is that we are all on the same page. And I think it's always the theme of everything that we talk about where it's for the consumer, and I think so many consumers don't even know that this exists.
Yeah.
And it's such a powerful tool to sell your home for top dollar.
Yeah.
I think it makes all the difference, and especially when the market's a little funky like this is the time that you want to make sure that your house is on the market looking the best.
Yeah. Yeah. When we looked at the competition as we entered that space, there's really, from my vantage point, 3 players that we were going to be competing against.
Right.
I won't say names, but one of those is just a massive brokerage.
Yeah.
And the big flaws with their product was they were really just originating a credit card.
Yeah.
And they were allowing the consumer to go and make the decisions.
Yeah.
And
which, to our first point,
yeah,
is probably not necessarily the right decision to move the house or
even do those dollars get spent on doing that, right?
Yep.
Their interest was just to originate another line of credit, and they got paid through that credit card company as like a referral fee, right? So the fundamentals of the product were just
it didn't feel right.
No, they were just misaligned.
Yeah.
The other 2 competitors, which I think you touched on, but they're venture-backed, private equity-backed, huge dollar commitment, got to hit earnings.
Yeah.
And so their pricing and their speed and their quality and warranty of that quality has just, from our vantage point, been atrocious.
Yeah.
And so when we decided to build that, it really was with the intent. Obviously we're business people. We want to get more listings. We want to sell more houses, but it was with the intent to do what was right for the customer.
Right.
Because generally when you do that, more is more, right? So if we have one customer that has a great experience with us, that's going to equal 2, 3, 4, 5 more listings or buyer representation agreements or Menden Market transactions.
Yeah.
And that's really been the case. The first deal we ever did in this structure was in Huntington Beach.
Yeah.
And the backdrop of the story was kind of complicated. I think the seller had listed with somebody else. House didn't sell. It was set up as like a short-term rental, and it just didn't live that well. When you walked it, you kind of were like, oh, there's a lot that's that's to be desired. And so when an end consumer walked into that open house, I imagine most consumers were like, oh shit, this is a big project. Like we're putting in new floors, we're moving a couple walls, we're repainting the whole thing, and it's 3,500 square feet. And mean, there were some funky colors.
Right.
And so, for us, it was kind of a test, but we
Yeah.
put in 40 grand, I think.
Right.
2.5 weeks. We bring it to market. The house sells in 30 days.
Right.
I mean, that seller's the happiest person. We should probably invite them on.
Yeah. Next guest. Yeah.
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 But it was a beautiful, round trip. And I don't know how many we've done now, but I know we've got, 10 or 15 that are in construction at the moment. So,
Right.
it's a beautiful product. So,
Yeah.
so if you're an agent that is not at our brokerage, how do you, get access to this product? Is it something that you have access to?
Yeah.
If you're a seller and you're interviewing agents to get ready to list, how do you get access to this product? Where do they
Yeah.
go?
Yeah, I mean, they come to us is what they
Yeah.
is what they do. I think we've already said we're kind of an open book for resources anyway.
Yeah.
So regardless of what brokerage you're at, regardless of where you're at, professionally, where consumers, I mean, I think that's the point of all of this is to share information.
Mm-hmm.
So the product is called Menden Market. And you can reach out to us directly and we'll get you set up in the right place.
So whether you're an agent, a seller,
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, give us a call and we can help.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool.
And where is that product available?
Well, currently,
SoCal.
Yeah, Southern California primarily. So, there might be some exceptions maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I think pretty much all of Southern California, maybe parts of Northern.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's a wrap. Episode number 13
Yeah.
of Realty Talk Podcast. Yeah. We have some great people coming on in the future.
Yeah, you just ask,
Yes, just ask people.
We'll tell that story later.
Check us out on Instagram,
Yeah.
YouTube, Spotify. If you have not subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. It helps us out a bunch. Thank you.
Yeah,
See you next time.